All right, first rule of the channel, we not talk about the channel. Second rule of the channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be the 2024 offseason fantasy football preview for the Baltimore Ravens. And remember, generally, I want pieces of good offenses. That's halfway true. I want pieces of good offenses at good prices. And in general, the way I would look at it is if a guy can tell me the story about how he can win me a league, I want him on my roster. If a guy can't tell me that story, I want him on someone else's roster. And if a guy can tell me the story how he loses me a league, I probably need him to be on someone else's roster. That's what we're going to look at when it comes to price. I like Lamar Jackson at his price. I like Mark Andrews at his price. Zay Flowers, I think, is like okay. You know, it's not good. It's not bad. I really dislike Derrick Henry's cost. And we're going to break down these things right now a little bit. Last year with the Ravens, they were 21st in passing yards. They were first in rushing yards. They were fourth in points for, and they were first in points against when it comes to defense. Again, we want bad defenses to give the ball or to make the offense score more points. The argument with a good defense is they're going to give the ball back to the offense so they can score again. That's a double-sided blade because eventually the offense just goes, we need to burn clock and get out of here with the W. So again, like, you know, a very efficient, good offense to go with a very inefficient, bad defense is going to be the fantasy holy grail. And in this case, like, I would bet the under when it comes to the Ravens defense being slightly worse. That I don't know how much this is going to really affect fantasy. That means that the points for are going to be a push overall. They still project to be like good overall from what I would want from a fantasy perspective, even though I'm expecting the rushing yards to go down and the passing yards to go up slightly. So starting off with Lamar Jackson, he's my quarterback 1 overall. He's going quarterback 4 on Fantasy Pros. He's going 34 overall there on Underdog. And remember, this is a best ball league. We're just trying to get an idea of the meta. Lamar Jackson is quarterback 3. He's going with an ADP of 42.5. And then over here on ESPN, he is going at quarterback 3, 44 overall. So how to break down Lamar Jackson. He's my quarterback 1 overall because the story I can tell about how he has an elite or a legendary season is the best out of all the quarterbacks this year. With Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, we're expecting some type of regression in that 15 rushing touchdowns that they had to get to where they were last year. And in the case of Lamar Jackson, I'm generally going to be expecting like somewhere plus or minus 800 yards rushing to go along with 5 rushing touchdowns. That's going to give you, like, again, your scoring settings and my scoring settings may be different, but that's going to give you about like 20.7 points a game. And in this case, if I can tell the story about how he's slightly better in the passing game and gives me slightly more passing yards and passing touchdowns, hey, I got a guy that's at least going to be competitive with an elite type season, if not having the ability to have that legendary type season, because he's had that legendary type season before, even though as guys get older, they tend to be less nimbly bimbly. So in this case with him, it just becomes an issue of ADP shopping. If I'm in a league and Lamar Jackson is projected out to be a 44 overall and he falls to me there, I'm really happy about that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to smash it all day long. In this case, there's 3 other quarterbacks that I would be interested in. That's Anthony Richardson, that's Kyler Murray, and that's Jane Daniels. And I can continue to play quarterback chicken with those 4 guys down the line. So if Lamar Jackson falls to me at price, I'm gonna smash that. If Anthony Richardson falls to me at price, I'm gonna smash that. I would be a little bit more aggressive with your Anthony Richardsons, your Kyler Murrays, and your Jane Daniels. To the point where, like, if Jaden Daniels is the last one on the board out of these like league winning type quarterbacks, these legendary outcome type quarterbacks, I would jump up more to get the next tier of guys than having to go jump up and pay Lamar Jackson prices. So on Fantasy Pros, where he's going 34 overall, if he falls to me at 34 overall, I'm probably going to just play quarterback chicken in that league. Let him be someone else's problem. If he falls to me at like 44 overall on an ESPN league, at that point, like, who am I passing up to smash Lamar Jackson? I still might be able to stack him with Mark Andrews in this league, but the other guys that are going to be in this range, I have a harder time telling the story about how they're going to win me a league. So I'm going to take the guys going to win me a league. That's just how it goes. On your Fantasy Pros type league where he's going like 34 overall, there's guys in this range. Your Devin A-Chain, your Jalen Waddles, your Josh Jacobs, Rashad White. I could tell those stories about how those guys win me a league. As opposed to Lamar Jackson. So now I'm going to play quarterback chicken, and I'm going to wait for your Anthony Richardson shares to be there on my next pick in those snake draft type leagues. Auction leagues, it's going to just be an issue of price, and the first guy that my other guys in that auction league allow me to take at at the price that he should go at or under is going to be the guy that I smash in that league overall. Peace of mind when it comes to Lamar Jackson. I do not like this quarterback room right now. It's Josh Johnson, 16-year vet. Devin Leary, 5th-round draft pick out of Kentucky. I thought there was some developmental stuff to him. I don't know how much he's going to slot in this year. And then Emory Jones is the dual threat guy out of Cincinnati. So, like, if Lamar Jackson goes down, they don't have Tyler Huntley. This is going to bother me a little bit when it comes down to being able to return on my investment. I don't like the peace of mind when it comes down to this stuff. All right, running back room. Derrick Henry, he is going to be my running back 16 overall, and I still don't like running back 16. The reason why I put him at running back 16 is because there's not a lot of competition for opportunity in this backfield right now. We'll talk about Rasheen Ali, the 5th-round draft pick. In this case, the other thing with Derrick Henry, he's going running back 9 on Fantasy Pros, 24 overall. On ESPN, he's going to be going at running back 10, 22 overall. I don't like this. And then on Underdog, he's going running back 9 with an ADP of 31.8. So the two things that we want out of a running back, red zone opportunity, yeah, he's probably going to get that. They're on a good offense. So that 12 rushing touchdowns that he had last year are probably going to be relatively consistent. Maybe we can push that up to 15. The other thing that we need out of a running back to have him be that league winner is going to be receiving work. He's never been a receiving work back. He's combined with a rushing quarterback. They tend not to check down. They tend to run the football themselves. So he's likely not going to get receiving work, and it's definitely not going to be in that design type of area. The other thing is he's over the age apex. He's 30. He turns 31 in January. His efficiency's already been going down. He was second in the league in rush attempts last year. Even if we push him out to have like 300 rush attempts and they're about 4 yards per carry, that's just not going to be enough for the rushing volume to matter. He has to have this like 20 touchdown season attached to this offense. Is that within the range of possibility? Yeah. But the other thing you got to understand is last year, you're looking at the possibility that you're drafting Gus Bus with about 100 more carries at 4 yards per pop, which is going to give you about like a 1,200-yard season, 13 touchdowns. That's what you're looking at. That's probably a story that should be on someone else's roster when it comes to Derrick Henry and that age and attached to this offense without the rushing work. So Rasheen Ali, and I can make sure of this before I talk, he's a 5th-round draft pick out of Marshall. I did watch some tape after. I didn't know anything about him. I did watch some tape on him. He tore his bicep in the Senior Bowl. He didn't test. I do like him. This is probably going to be the guy to be paying attention to see how much he's going to eat into Derrick Henry, how much of him is going to be a priority cuff coming out there. So right now, like, I don't have him as draftable. This is all stuff that we'll be paying attention to during camp. On Underdog, he is going as running back 70 with an ADP of 214. On Fantasy Pros, he is going 333 overall, running back 100. And again, this may end up being a priority cuff down the line. He might end up being the other thing that ends up moving Derrick Henry further down the board if they're going to integrate him in the offense. If you're wondering about Keaton Mitchell, he's not draftable right now. Not looking like he's going to start the season. You're looking at him being pupped and then having to ramp back in, and then it becomes a question of like how healthy he's going to be coming off that ACL last year. At this point, like, I can tell the story about how he should be on someone else's roster. That's just how I would treat him. Doesn't matter how good a football player I think he is or is going to be this year. I just don't know how he wins me anything just outside of like clogging up a roster spot. Even if he comes back, like, now we're still having the conversation about like how much Rasheen Ali is good and how efficient Derrick Henry is before we can even talk about like what is the potential upside of Keaton Mitchell coming back from what looks like a pretty bad knee injury. They still got Justice Hill on the roster. This would be another guy like probably a replacement guy during the season at this point, expecting he will make the roster in some capacity. Just what role is he going to have in the offense? He was kind of more of the receiving back, again, limiting Derrick Henry's upside. So there's two chances between Ali and Justice Hill of lowering Derrick Henry's upside that's likely going to be inefficient at his age. All right. And then last thing with Derrick Henry, looks like it's a 2-year, $16 million a year deal. Remember that DeAndre Swift did about $8 million a year. This is a little misleading because what it looks like, it's a 1-year, $9 million contract with the out after this year. So if Derrick Henry is busted, they're going to move on after this year. So they're not paying him to be on the roster next year. That's a little leading when it comes to contract. All right, wide receiver room. Got to pull it up. Zay Flowers, he's my wide receiver 30. He's wide receiver 27 on Fantasy Pros, 53 overall. Over here on ESPN, he is wide receiver 24, 47 overall. And then on Underdog, he is going as wide receiver 25 with an ADP of 37.1. This is another one of those things, like, I liked him coming into the offseason, waiting to see where the ADPs are. At this point, I don't like the cost of Zay Flowers. I think it's like a push. Yeah, we can tell the story how he's the number one in this offense. That's true. I can also tell the story about how he's the number 3 in this offense, probably going to be the number 2 in this offense behind Mark Andrews. And then at the price, like if he was wide receiver 30, I'm interested. If he's wide receiver 27, if he's wide receiver 24, like something along those lines, I become less and less interested. So again, at this range, like 47 overall on ESPN, I'm going Lamar Jackson or I'm going Mark Andrews. They both have better chances to win me a league at that point, at that cost, relative to where they're going. That's just, where it goes. Like if Zay Flowers fell another 10 picks, like I'd stop. And I had already picked up like a Lamar Jackson or a Mark Andrews or something like that. Like maybe I have the ability to tell us the story about how he finishes a top 10 wide receiver and he's worth it at that point. If he falls in some of these like less competitive leagues to like pick 70, yeah, he's got more value, because even though there's an outside chance that he could finish as the number 1 on the offense, I can tell that story at that price. When I'm paying for wide receiver 24 and I'm going to get wide receiver 24, I don't like that. That's probably better that someone else finds out that he's, a top 10 wide receiver at that point, relative to the other guys that are going to be on the board that can win me a league. To finish this off, they re-signed former first-round draft pick Rashad Bateman to a 2-year, $12.8 million deal. This is what part of what I said, like why I don't like Zay Flowers. If we're expecting that Mark Andrews has the best road to be the number 1 in this offense, they're paying Rashad Bateman to be basically like a wide receiver 3. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to have the better range of outcomes when it comes to the wide receiver room with Zay Flowers, that he's going to have the better opportunities, the more efficient opportunities in the offense. That's part of the reason why I would move Zay Flowers down. Like the quote unquote big boy routes may not go to Zay Flowers if he's a gadget guy. And then at this point, like I'd be better off just throwing that dart at a Rashad Bateman to have, from a production standpoint, the same outcome as Zay Flowers. So the biggest knock on Rashad Bateman, he's flawed, just like Zay Flowers is going to be, is that he can't stay healthy. If he stays healthy this year, yeah, you could get like a wide receiver 3 type range of outcomes. And if I have to choose between having the number 3 in the offense, and the number 2 in the offense, and they're both part of a good offense, I'm going to take the cheaper guy that may end up having the same production with Rashad Bateman. So with Bateman, he is my wide receiver 66. He's going 74 overall on Fantasy Pros, 176. On Underdog, he is going as wide receiver 73 with an ADP of 166.6. He's going to have some spike weeks. That's just what he does in general. That's what he did 2 years ago. If I could pull up this one, we were hype training him up. Like week 2, 4 for 7 for 108 and a touchdown. Week 1, 2 for 5 for 59 and a touchdown. Like that's what Bateman's going to do. And then it just becomes an issue of him staying healthy in the offense. And then on ESPN, Bateman's going wide receiver 80, 210. So if I have my choice between that guy I'm going to throw away week 1 to get a piece of this offense, it's going to be Bateman over Flowers, because I have to pay to find out with Flowers. I don't have to pay to find out with Bateman. That's the easy way about this. There are a couple other things. They did re-sign Nelson Aguilar. He was basically running as the de facto wide receiver 2 in this offense. That's with like OBJ there last year. Would expect that he may end up being the number 2 in this offense when it comes to being on the field. That would definitely not make me want to even take the flyer on Rashad Bateman at that point. So that would be something to be paying attention to in camp. Who's running as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense? They also drafted North Carolina wide receiver Tez Walker from North Carolina. He's a speed guy. Expect that he's going to be on the outside running wind sprints to allow Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews to do what they do. So that would be another thing we're paying attention to. Like, who's the third wide receiver? Is it going to be Nelson Aguilar, or is it going to be Tez Walker in this case, to go along with who's going to be on the field in the 2 tight end or the 2 wide receiver sets? All right. Finally, we get to the tight end room. I really like Mark Andrews. I think he's undervalued. Remember, I'm not drafting last year's production. I'm drafting this year's range of outcomes. Mark Andrews is going to be another one that has that legendary range of outcomes. He can be the unicorn. He could be the number one in the offense, and he can be essentially like a wide receiver one attached to the offense. That's what he did in 2021, where he did. He finished as tight end one overall, 154 targets, 107 receptions, 1,361 yards, 9 touchdowns. Again, if I'm paying outside of tight end one to find out that Mark Andrews is going to be like tight end 7, like I'm okay with that because of the range of outcomes that he can have a legendary season. Last year, and I can bring this up with our friend Sam Laporta. So Sam Laporta was a league winner, not because he did anything super amazing from a statistical standpoint. I mean, he had 10 receiving touchdowns last year, but there wasn't a legendary type unicorn type season from the tight ends. So even Travis Kelce and TJ Hawkinson finished with higher points per game than Sam Laporta did. When I'm looking at drafting guys this year, if I'm going to draft Sam Laporta, I'm expecting that he's going to take this statistical jump forward in the receiving yards to go along with staying consistent with the 10 touchdowns. If I can pay for someone else to have that same range of outcomes at less price than Sam Laporta, I'm going to pull the trigger on that. That looks like it's going to be Mark Andrews. And it's super easy to sit there and say, like, well, what are the tight ends that have the opportunity to be the number one in their offense? And there's only 4 of those guys. It's going to be Kelce. It's going to be Dalton Kincaid. It's going to be Mark or Trey McBride, because we don't necessarily know that first-year rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison is going to just jump in and be that guy when Trey McBride was that guy last year. And then finally, it's going to be Mark Andrews. And it just becomes an issue of price at that point. From an ESPN type league with Mark Andrews, like 51 overall, if they gift me Mark Andrews at 51 overall, I'm going to take it. I might even jump up a little bit on Mark Andrews to make sure that I get him in this league. And then I can play maybe a little bit of tight end chicken when it comes to Trey McBride or Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts at that point overall. On Fantasy Pros, he's going 52 overall. I still like the price. And then it just becomes an issue of the other guys in this neighborhood that are going to allow me the ability to win leagues. Maybe it's going to be Anthony Richardson. Maybe it's going to be Trey McBride. I'm trying to look at some of the other ones that are down here. Terry McLaurin would be in this range if they fall to me. If I'm taking a Terry McLaurin over a Mark Andrews, it's because like I'm fading the tight end position, or I've already drafted a tight end and I don't know what other tight ends I would want. Mark Andrews is my tight end 1, or my tight end 2 overall right now. So tight end 3 on Fantasy Pros, 52 overall. And then on ESPN, tight end 3, 51 overall. On Underdog, he is going as tight end 3 with an ADP of 51. So this would be the range that I would be very happy at pulling the trigger at Mark Andrews or jumping up slightly to go pick him up. The other guy to talk about in this is Isaiah Likely. I can bring him up right here. One of the rare tight end cuffs that are out there in fantasy football, like ever. In this case, he is tight end 26 on Fantasy Pros. He's undraftable for me, 197. Underdog, he's going tight end 23 with an ADP of 184. On ESPN, I don't even think he's not even draftable. He's not even on the board. In this case, like probably some formats, Isaiah Likely should be drafted in some of the deeper leagues. Depending on what your league rules are, he is probably more likely going to be a priority cuff to the Mark Andrews owner heading into playoffs this year. Just something to be paying attention to going into the offseason. So I think that's about all I have for the Ravens. And yeah,